Good morning, everyone. This is Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. I'm so excited today because I have two guests. Normally we only have one, but today we have a husband and wife who are partners in a company called Lolli Brands, or in a documentary they just did called Biohack Yourself, which has now become their brand. So we're going to talk to TereZa and Anthony. Hi, both of
How you
you.
doing?
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks
And
for having us.
and they're in and you're in Florida
Yes, we are. Yeah, we
today.
love it out here. We just moved out here a couple years ago.
Where did you move from? New
New
York?
York City. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were avid New Yorkers for forever.
Yeah. And you were in real estate, and that's my background. In fact, I
Yeah.
still am a real estate developer, but I have this, I told TereZa I have this passion for wellness, which I've had for 30 years. And so I finally did something to start a podcast about 6 years ago to basically pursue an avocation. But in your case, you left real estate, right? You're not doing it real estate
Well, no,
anymore?
well, I left the brokerage end of it. I had ran and operated one of the largest rental brokerages in New York City. We scaled it from one location to 100 locations nationally, and
Wow.
then exited that company. And then I started a real estate school, which was the second largest real estate school in New York City, and built and sold that. That licensed like 40,000 people. But throughout that process, I built a nice portfolio of real estate where we own a lot of mixed use and multifamily buildings in New York City.
Uh-huh.
The reason why we moved to Florida is that we're real estate developers, TereZa and I, here in Florida. So we do ground up
Oh,
multifamily development here. And so what I think is ageless and timeless is real estate, because that's one of the things that lasts a long time. And so
yeah.
the only reason why we're in this space and where we're even in this phone call is because I used to be a 315-pound real estate mogul,
Right.
and I decided to lose weight based on TereZa's advocacy. We joke
Right.
around, right? TereZa was Maha before it
Yeah.
was invented. She was
Right.
make Anthony healthy again. And
Right.
so fast forward the hands of time, I did a weight loss documentary where TereZa and I produced it and started it ourselves. And then that kind of put us on the map and really helped us understand that, age is only a number. And now that, we got our health in our physical outside in check, we needed to really focus on the inside,
Yeah.
ageless and timeless. And so that really got us into the biohacking space, where TereZa was really into natural remedies and homeopath originally. And then we just decided to do more documentaries on that.
TereZa, what led you to be so passionate about wellness so early in your life? Like the same way I was, but I'd like to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised with those beliefs. I mean, I was raised in Armenia where we didn't have means, which was actually a good thing in a way because we relied heavily on homeopathic remedies and just homemade stuff. So I grew up thinking and believing in it. I grew up seeing miracles that, me, my sisters, we would never get sick based on what my mother would use on us. We never took medication and that sort of thing. But then when I moved to the United States, I kind of forgot all about that. I was living my life, in my 20s. And it wasn't until I had my children, Love and Legend, where I kind of started looking into it again on a deeper level, because now I have two human beings whose lives are completely in my hands. So started really digging deep and understanding what the difference is of homeopathic and alternative and functional medicine life here versus how I was raised, right? This is way more sophisticated here in the United States, but yet it's very segregated, and yet there's no guidance, and it could really be confusing, and it could
Mm-hmm.
really rub many people off the wrong way. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't see results the first time or the second time, you can easily be turned off and then go right back to the Western medicine world, which is disheartening for me to find out. So
Mm-hmm.
my mission was, I'm going to find out no matter what. So with my son specifically, which hit me harder than anything else, was when he was born, he had eczema and jaundice and silent acid reflux. So I took him to normal doctors, Western medicine, including NYU Langone, and took him to 9 different doctors, and they all gave me different diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
different solutions. And that was really shocking to me, because you may think, right, they're all trained the same way. They
Mm-hmm.
should be all kind of giving you the same opinion and the same remedies, but it was the complete opposite. And then I said, I'm going to go this other route, functional medicine, alternate medicine. So I said, but because this world is not really proven, I'm going to see double the amount of doctors. So I'm going to see 18 of this. Then I'll make my educated guess. And to my shock, after 18 visits, I had the same exact opinion 18 times and very similar remedies. So I already knew I'm going to be a believer through and through in the alternative medicine practices. And through the practices, through the protocols, I was able to reverse my son's conditions, which if I had not, he was going the autism route, he was going the other route because the medication that they were subscribing wrongly, for example, iron medicine, liquid iron, without finding out that this kid has the MTHFR gene mutation and cannot methylate, he will get sicker. It was just disheartening to see what was happening in the medical industry, and the fact that I was able to also help Anthony with the obesity, and then I was helping my daughter with the lymph node. She had a golf ball size of lymph node that popped out of a ear infection, and it was there for quite a bit. And again, doctors were scaring me and asking me to go get a surgery, a biopsy, an invasive, medication. Of course, I didn't do any of that. And I was able to resolve it through biohacking and alternative medicine.
It's so interesting because it just seems this is a theme with so many of the guests that have been on my podcast, that it's kind of like a crisis and opportunity is the Chinese word for crisis is opportunity. And it seems like there's like an event or several events that cause people to just say, no, this is not the way I want to go, and this is not working for me, and then turning to the modality and the protocols that we all know are much more effective, because basically functional medicine is curing the cause or looking for the cause, whereas the Western allopathic medicine is looking for just a symptom. You come in with a symptom and they're going to try to treat the symptom, but that symptom requires them giving you a pharmaceutical drug, and then that drug causes other side effects, and now you're treating more than one symptom. So I think we all know that, we're very lucky, we're blessed, because most of the Western world is not following that direction. And so, I think, we can say, thank you, God, for giving us that wisdom. Well, Anthony, what was the moment in your journey that caused you to say, and this is enough, I'm going to lose this 300 and, well, not all the 315, but lose this weight and go on a program that will be completely intensive for what you did?
There was many moments, right? First of all, TereZa had tried to advocate my weight loss many times before we had children. In fact, there were so many family interventions about my weight getting out of control that I decided to do a gastric sleeve just to shut up my family from having all of these big meetups about my health. So I did a gastric sleeve begrudgingly, and I ended up losing 50 pounds, and then I gained 70. So I actually made my situation worse because I was unable to absorb protein in foods, and so I lost all the muscle mass that my body had. So I was now getting sleep apnea. I was now getting knee pain. I was now facing more. I was in and out of the hospital. So, and then because what happened was I didn't change my eating habits. So I went from not being able to eat properly, just being, careless and reckless with the food, eating whole pizzas, pies, and ice cream, and doing, what most people commit suicide by obesity. Whether you want to call it that or not, that's what it is.
Right.
And so what ended up happening, now I'm drinking my calories. Now I'm not even eating steaks. And so now it was worse. And so then I was in a situation where my wife and my kids now were being victims of my lifestyle decisions. And so there was a pivotal moment. We talk about it in our original documentary, Fat Lolli to Six Pack Lolli, where my daughter looked at me and said, "Daddy, you're fat. I don't want you to die." And this was after numerous conversations, and then TereZa coming in and saying, "Look, do you want to really be this kind of example for your son?" Having a son kind of up the ante for me as well, where now I had to really be an embodiment of a man for my son. So it was beyond me, and it was really a decision where I had to stop being selfish and do
Today's
something for the
podcast is brought
family
to you by
overall.
International
And so
Anti-Aging
that
Systems
really was the
and
catalyst
Profound
and the
Health.
tipping point
The founder,
for
Phil
really taking
Mickens,
things
has been
and
a
taking it
guest on
seriously.
Ageless and Timeless, and those who know him personally, as I am so fortunate to do, can attest to his knowledge, experience, authenticity, and his passion to help make the world a better place, with a commitment to work profoundly to improve our health. I personally have used the peptide bioregulators, some of his hormones, and his skincare products, and I can attest to their efficacy. If you want those unique and value-added evidence-based health products, then IAS and Profound Health are your number one resource. We're going to flash on the screen the different websites that you can use in order to order their products. And no matter which website you go to and which products you order, please use the Ageless code for a 15% discount. So how did you do it?
Oh, well, I did it the same way I believe all of us, when we make a decision, we then now bring in the intelligent part of our brain. Okay. So what does that mean? That means I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I did before. I'm going to hire a coach. I'm going to hire a guide. And so I did. I hired someone to live with me for a year. And then we also documented everything so I could really showcase the milestones. So I wanted to be an example to my community. Who was my community? My community was the 1% of Americans that are fortunate to have everything but don't have their health. Mm-hmm. And so I was speaking to one core audience, which was men and women, 6, 7, and 8-figure earners, C-suite executives, people that, really make tons of excuses. And the one thing money can't buy, which is your health. The one thing you cannot have a servant do, which is work out for you. And so that message really resonated. And then TereZa being involved with that resonated to a lot of wives, because a lot of wives that have husbands that are very headstrong, if you will, they can't get into their head to lose weight. And so the main reason why a wife marries a husband in the first place, they love him till death do us part. But there's many men that, choose to have the death doing them part a lot sooner rather than later. And so TereZa was really advocating for my health and longevity and health span. See, there's a big difference, right? You talk about ageless and timeless, but there's something called health span and lifespan.
Correct.
Some people can live a long time unhealthy.
Right.
And that's not quality of life.
Right.
And so having a good health span is really what TereZa introduced to the family, because I was in a unique space where my genetics would allow me to live a lot longer and endure some of the chemicals and some of the abuse that my body was taking because of my good genetics from my mother and my father.
Right.
But I mean, what am I going to be? Like, it's almost like taking on a quadriplegic, right? And really being that kind of burden. And so that's not something that my wife wanted for the kids. That's something my mother didn't want for her son to go through. That's not something their kids wanted their dad to go through. And believe me, it was going to happen.
Well, TereZa, I'm curious to know, because you were the caregiver in the sense, the support mechanism. So what feelings did you have during that time that you now look back on and say, this really did make the difference in my being there?
Yeah, well, I needed to look at it as an unconditional love, the way I experience my love for my children. So I needed to put all ego or all everything to the side, including, raising 2 very young children all by myself. Like, he never woke up in the middle of the night to change a diaper throughout the entire childhood, right? But that was my choice. I said, you're going to be working out 8 hours a day. Like, you need to rest, right? He would go get regular massages. He would, it was like a full-time job for both of us synergistically as a family. Second, I'm a very visual person. So as a supportive person, I put this on all of the walls of the house. I photoshopped it. And so I truly believe in, seeing the end result rather than focusing on losing pounds. You want to see the finished product. So I photoshopped his head and I printed this out and I put it everywhere. And
I love that.
yeah, we started manifesting that visually. I took the burden of raising the two kids all by myself, and I also insulated ourselves with the support of his mother and my mother. We had two grandmas supporting us as far as like cooking, the meal prepping, right? Because he was on a very strict meal prep where every food had to be measured, including the salt, including the water. And of course, bringing the coach to live with us and, catering to that as well. So it was almost an army. And so that was my position, to be as unconditional as I could possibly be and to support in every single way, despite the struggles I was going through with Healing Legend.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter's career was taking off at the time. At the age of 2, she was booking more national commercials that I could manage. So we were in castings and auditions and filmings while I
Oh,
was in homeopathic offices with my son, trying to figure out the puzzle while supporting Anthony in his journey in the
wow.
softest and sweetest possible way. He had
Wow.
blue skin surgery. I was totally against that, but he needed that to complete his journey. For him, it was like getting rid of his entire wardrobe of,
Right.
the triple XL and double XL clothing, but his skin was his triple XL skin that he was wearing. So he needed to get rid of that.
Right.
For me, like, going under surgery by any means is horrible, but he did
Right.
that, and it was very good for his mindset. And even until today, he's maintaining his weight, he's maintaining his new persona, his new look because of that. So even through that, I would wipe his butt, when he would be standing and pooping because he
Yeah.
couldn't sit from pain. It was months and months of recovery.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're treating him like your child,
Like a child.
at
You
that
had
time.
3 children, really.
100%. And
Yeah.
my dog 4.
Yeah. And 4 children with a dog. So,
Yeah.
Anthony, what qualities about yourself do you think have helped you to go through this transformation so successfully?
I think it's a stick-to-itiveness. I think it's my real estate background. I think you can understand Michelle as a real
Mm-hmm.
estate person. In real estate, there's two types of investors. There's speculative and
Yeah.
there's very, very astute investors that know exactly what they're buying. And
Right.
so what I was doing as a um, wannabe weight loss person was speculating on the things that I was doing in terms of losing weight, crash dieting, starvation, all kinds of,
Right.
self-help.
Or
And
taking
and
sugary shakes after every
right.
workout.
And so once
Right.
I made the switch to doing what I do in my real estate career, which is I'm not buying anything unless it's going to make money. I'm not buying anything unless I have approved plans or an architect or I understand what the zoning rights are and I
Mm-hmm.
have a beginning, middle, and an end. I'm not buying anything unless there's a bank that wants to lend and
Mm-hmm.
it's pencils out. There's a P&L and there's a refinance or an exit strategy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I put my real estate mind and saying, I'm going to hire a professional. And so once I decided to make that switch and treat it like a business, where I actually attached the business to it, which was the documentary, which was online coaching, which was advertising and attracting other people, then it started to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you gave that analogy because I so relate to everything that you said. But so along the way, did you stumble? Were there times when you felt like I can't go on?
No, because what happened was I was committed. So what I needed to do was brainwash myself, right? So the man with no shoes felt bad until he saw the man with no feet. What does that mean? I was
Mm-hmm.
looking at 500, 400 pound men that were losing weight. And I had to and then I looked at men that didn't have the financial resource or the family support. So I said, if they can do it, what's my excuse? Right. And then I started looking at successful men that have everything except weight loss and how they were failing. And so I said, I got to just beat the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking at people that were successfully losing weight. And then I would look back, where are they now? They gained the weight. So I also knew that there was 3 categories.
Yeah.
And I wanted to beat all three. Not only did I want to lose weight,
Yeah.
not only did I want to, get loose skin surgery and completely erase what I looked like, but I wanted to be a champion and I wanted to keep the weight off forever. So we're
Mm-hmm.
on year 5 at this point of my weight loss, and I've kept it off and I look better than ever. And now we're in the anti-aging.
Yeah, and so that did. I know you did the first documentary on the six pack, but what inspired you to do the Biohack Yourself?
Well, there was many documentaries, right? So we did the six pack one, and then we did something called the super lollies, which this time the shoe was on the other foot. So all of a sudden, I lost the weight, and TereZa was there with the mom bod because she's the one that had the babies. She's the one that had the diastasis recti. She's
Yeah,
the one that put her body through a bunch of different things that most moms do anyway when they
yeah.
have children. So we decided to put her through a transformation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
her transformation wasn't as drastic as mine. She wasn't 315 pounds or any of that kind of stuff, but she identified with a different niche. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for women, just being 10 pounds feels like 100 pounds.
Absolutely.
It wasn't focused on weight loss. It was focused on gaining strength,
Yeah,
not experiencing postpartum back pains,
yeah,
and so on. So I actually managed to gain 12 pounds of muscle
yeah,
because my coaches told me that the first year you can maximize your muscle growth if you do it right. So we
yeah,
did it right with meal plans and workout plans, and the regimen was rigorous. So I was able to gain that much muscle where all of my back pain, my diastasis recti, all of them were eradicated. And then we decided to go ahead and compete in all of the different federations, taking our audience with us because we fell in love with that world. We said, wow, if everybody just competed once, right, and had a goal of getting to that perfect body,
yeah.
the regiment to get to that is so rigorous that if you can put yourself through that and get to that stage, you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna change forever. There's no
Mm-hmm.
questions asked about it. So we wanted to show the audience what it's like to be a competitive fitness model. And we stepped on stage together, combined 35 times. I became a two-time bikini world pro, and
Oh,
he transitioned to a muscle model pro. And in the interim, we instilled the workout regimen habits in our children because they were watching us train as a couple.
mm-hmm.
And so it was incredible to experience. But to answer your question with the biohacking, it was the perfect timing for us to have gone through such journeys, right? Transformation, bodybuilding, putting ourselves through all these competitions. My hormones were completely out of whack. I lost my testosterone and they were all just up and down. I was losing hair because you can't really be competing for that long and staying on such a low body fat percentage. And he was having his meridian and lymphatic issues from the surgery. So we started looking elsewhere. And I already kind of knew the functional medicine world. But when we stumbled across the word biohacking, I was like, that sounds like it's a good world. Let's
Yeah.
do a documentary on this. Let's go head in and really discover what this world stands for. Turns out that the world of biohacking and longevity encompasses all of it. All of the functional medicine doctors, the alternative medicine doctors, the homeopath, the herbalist, the naturopaths, they are all coming under this umbrella of biohacking to identify that, hey, we are not Western medicine. We are body first and we are cause first.
Root cause.
Yeah. And that was Dave Asprey, right?
Dave
That came.
Asprey, yep, he came up with the word biohacking and he never trademarked it because he wanted people to use it. People like us who created the documentary, we managed to cast 114 of the most leading influencers and experts and founders and scientists and PhDs, and even RFK Jr. as a politician came on
Right.
board because he is, somewhat biohacking. He takes brain peptides and he works
Yeah.
out and takes care of his muscle structure. So we
Yeah.
talked about it heavily in a very simplified language. We even brought our kids into the documentary to ask some of the most complex topics to ask questions about, where it was simplified and digestible for the average person. So they're streaming on Amazon Prime, and we really pride ourselves for giving many solutions in our documentaries, and bringing companies and doctors that are available and hungry to take clients through
Mm-hmm.
telemedicine, and you can buy their products and start feeling better. How about start that, right? Start
Mm-hmm.
with feeling better. And that's what
You
we
know,
want.
it's so interesting. Last, I had Amy Horniman on my podcast. You know her, and
Of course.
the thyroid
She's the
fixer.
star.
And
She's one of the stars in our Shields documentary, which is our female health
yes,
documentary. Yeah.
yes, I
She's
know. I'm
awesome.
so excited to that for that when that's going to be. When is that going to be live?
It will be either at the end of this year or beginning of next year. We're in
Okay.
post-production. We filmed it last December, and it was incredible, the knowledge that we've gained. I mean, women are definitely a whole different beast, and to biohack ourselves is a whole different way that we need to go about it. And we discovered all of that. So we're actually about to start launching a lot of short content, a lot of articles written about our cast members, and all of it can be found on Biohack Yourself Media Instagram or biohackyourself.com, our website platform. And people can already start going and learning about our cast. What do they do? And start seeing these doctors.
When we do a documentary, we're doing a documentary that we wish existed, right?
Yeah.
Most of the documentaries you watch are woe is me.
Yeah.
They're shaming the government. They're talking about important things, vaccines, injuries, things like that are important, but there's no solution.
Right.
And so, and then if you look at a doctor or a practitioner, they're no longer practicing. They're not someone that you could actually reach out to and actually work with. Our documentaries, whoever you see on the screen, we actually point you to their website. We point you to their Instagram. You can meet with them. You can actually engage with them. You can watch their like Amy Horniman, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned her.
Yeah.
We're going to introduce Amy Horniman to a whole world that doesn't even know she exists, but
Right.
she's amazing. She's a rock star.
Right.
And so her and 74 other amazing people are in Shield.
Right.
There's 114 amazing people in Biohack. But what happens is you can go to Biohack Yourself website, and now you can actually read articles about them, find solutions. They're actually contributors. So there's a whole big ecosystem. And so what happens now, thanks to RFK, actually opening up the world to naturopathic and homeopathic and alternative ways to heal yourself. The bad thing about that is that there's more people coming into the space that are ill-intentioned.
Yeah.
So where do you go? How do you cancel out the noise? So the website, the documentaries are there to give you a good start.
You know, what I was going to tell you about Amy is because I was segueing from what you said, TereZa, that she said on our podcast together that her bottom line is, how do you feel? And you can go through all of the protocols, but at the end of the day, you know, not everything is going to work for everybody because everybody's chemistry, biochemistry is different. But so her, you know, basic question to everybody is, how do you feel? Because all the other measurements can just be academic if you still don't feel good. You know, your thyroid might test normal, which we all know that's kind of a joke because the thyroid very often does test normal, but you still have all the symptoms of Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. So, So, and yesterday I was on the phone with another podcast guest, and I said, "Oh, do you know the Lollis?" And she said, "I'm on their film. It's Betty Murray."
Of course. Oh,
She's
love
amazing.
her.
I was just talking to her 2 days ago. Yeah.
She's another one that's a hidden gem, and she takes clients through telemedicine, and she can make wonders happen if you're struggling.
And she's another rock star. You know about her. I mean, obviously you talked about it on the podcast, but you know, she's another person that's deserved for the world to know and work with.
Yeah. And Jess McNaughton is the one that connected us. So
yes, from C60.
Yeah, so she's another rock star, by the way, with a real estate background.
I know that she and I had that in common, and we immediately bonded because of that, plus our interest in wellness. But so I know we have a lot of overlap. I mean, my podcast, if you look at the list of the people who've been on them, many of them are in your documentary. Will be in the women's one. Of course, being a woman in a world like this, we both know, TereZa, that women have been somewhat underdiagnosed and understudied in the research. So it's wonderful to have so many women coming out into the forefront as spokespersons that will, and then with RFK, I think we're going to see some big changes with respect to women's health. And the research dollars that go into women's health. So what messages in the Biohack Yourself documentary, what message do you think came out loud and clear?
You know what's interesting? It's what TereZa and I first sought out to do. It's what we thought we sought, what we accomplished, and then it's what the general public thinks, right? It's a lot like music. TereZa's background is in music. She was a
Right.
recording artist. She's in Netflix movies.
Right.
And that's why we kind of hit it off swimmingly because of my background and hers. And so in music, you know, when you create an album, there's the song that you love, that you think is the best.
Yeah.
And then there's the one that the audience, you know, actually likes. And when we did the Fat Lolli documentary, out of all the scenes, out of everything, the one that resonated the most with the general public, the one that people talk about every time they meet us on the street, is literally the scene where TereZa is wiping my behind
Hmm.
after my surgery when I'm standing up and I can't even use the bathroom.
Uh,
I never thought that was the scene that was going to make people compelled to want to actually lose weight and do something, but that was the real. So now that the documentary Biohack Yourself is out, you know, we're getting so much feedback now from people. You know, we just were at Osteo Strong with her mother and my mother. We're actually biohacking ourselves. Like we are genuinely, sincerely putting ourselves through the immersive process.
right.
And there were clients of theirs that I recognize you. You're the guy from the Biohack Yourself. Tell me, you know, and they start telling us their feedback, what they enjoyed the most, and so forth. So, you know, what we're doing right now is really absorbing that information because the movies are freshly out. There's millions of people watching them,
Hmm.
million people coming. There's 6 million people coming to the Instagram every month. We're
Wow.
getting baptized by fire by watching the documentaries.
Right.
So the jury's still out because we're getting a mixture of different. All the main, I think, thing that people are saying is thank you. Like, thank you for introducing me to this person, or thank
Hmm.
you for making it simple, or thank you for including your kids because it made it less intimidating. Thank you
Hmm.
for not allowing people to say mitochondria, ATP, telomeres without asking them what that means.
Yes. Good. I love
Solutions
that.
actually what came out for sure. That's what the feedback I hear on Instagram. People reach out to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just bought a whole box of energy bits and my kids love it and I
Right.
see a difference." And the other one is buying a water filtration system. So the people are so excited because for the first time they have a vetted process that has already happened and they can just go and purchase brainlessly almost,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I'm so
So
happy you're promoting or the energy bits because Catherine Arneson was on my podcast and she's been so incredibly generous. I mean, I take them every single day, both the chlorella and the spirulina, and it's because of her that she just insisted. And I said, "Oh, Catherine, I'm just going to take 2 a day." And she said, "Absolutely no, you have to take 10 a day or you won't feel a difference."
yeah.
And so she kept sending me like these gift boxes. She's incredible. She's another one.
Yes. You know, by the way, she's in Biohack Yourself and she's in Shield.
But we
So,
made an exception, by the
exception,
way.
we don't recycle the same thought leaders. But in
Right.
her case, she said, wait a minute, I just got my PhD. So now she's Dr.
Yes,
Catherine
I
Arnston.
know.
So she said, I have new information that I want to talk about. And I feel like I can add value. Plus, I'm a female. And you know, she came on as a younger Catherine because she's ageless. She's
Exactly.
anti-aging.
Yeah,
Well, the main
exactly. Well, look what she's been doing with the energy bits her whole life since her sister, had the breast cancer. But
yeah,
no, she's and she's an incredibly talented graphic artist. I
yeah,
don't know if you know that, but if you look at all their collateral, it's one of the most impressive of any other health company. And I walk the shows at the A4M, for example, and they stand out and then all their, everything they send to you online and so forth. So I asked her one time, well, how does this happen? You must have an incredible team. And she said, well, I'm by background, I have, a graphics experience. So she's very aesthetic. And then, of
exactly.
course, she guides the people, but her staff loves her.
Yeah.
Because I talked to some of them as well. But yeah, so you got a good one there too, I'm sure. And I know we have others. Did you have Leslie Kenny from Spermidine?
No.
Okay, I'm going to give you her name. She'd be somebody for the future. I know it's already past due,
Yeah.
but
I
you,
wanted to go back to your question that you said, what's the main message to get
yes,
out of this? I think the
yes,
main message is what I've been getting it for the past 6, 7 years is that, being healthy needs to be looked at as a part-time job. and we need to take this seriously and responsibly because, you know, our children's health, our parents' health, our husband's health, our wife's health really all depends on the level of our education and comprehension and understanding what's happening, because the environment, the water, the food has been hacking us for all these years. Now we're starting to understand and be more cautious. Now we're just inundated with overstimulated stimulating of information. But that's basically what I want people to understand from the documentary. You got to look at your health as a part-time job, if not full-time job. You got to do the research. You got to do things for your body to thrive in this daily life.
And not only that, but Anthony and TereZa, there's so much noise out there.
Yeah.
You have to be so discerning, and how do you get the information that's going to be valuable for you so you don't go down a lot of dead-end paths and you've spent a lot of money, and you know insurance doesn't cover a lot of what you're doing, so you have to come out of pocket. So this again, like real estate, this is like big entrepreneurial risk takers that are taking responsibility for their health because they have to do all the, like you said, Anthony, it's so accurate. You have to do all the research and you have to have all the ducks in a row, but you don't always have the outcome until you actually try, and then trying might produce no results. And so, you know, how do you do that? How do you use your discernment to know what's going to work for you without making bad choices?
Well, first of all, we never take on a brand or product without referral. And so for the first thing we do is we look at a brand. We have something called peer review now on our platform. So because of the kind of eyeballs, people are coming to us for exposure into the marketplace that didn't make the cut or actually weren't aware that we were casting for this big documentary series between the Biohack and Shield. And there's many more companies out there that are deserving of some shine and attention. And so what happens is now we look at the efficacy, we look at the studies, and then we have a peer review board. We have a faculty now of doctors, practitioners, homeopaths, wellness brand owners, as well as wellness clinic owners. So they help us review brands and products, and they make the recommendations. And then now, because of our big network, you know, we have that of capability. That's our magazine that's hitting the shelves.
That's right.
This is the continuation. I'm only going to give you a sneak preview.
It's
going to be on the shelves internationally as of April 21st. And this issue with the most notable brain specialist, Dr. Daniel Amen, is going to be on the shelves for 3 months. We recognize the need for continuous peer review, for continuous vetting of experts and you know, new studies getting published and new products coming to the world, because even a lot of our cast members from Biohack Yourself, when we filmed them 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, they're coming up with new and better versions of their product, and they're calling us asking if we can do another documentary. And you know, you can't potentially continue to do documentary series, 100 episodes. So what we understood is a really good continuation is the Biohack Yourself magazine.
So will that be a monthly magazine?
This is a quarterly magazine for this year, and we're publishing some incredible scientists' work, as they prefer to now publish with us versus like the journals, because journals are now kind of getting the light of potentially being corrupt or being too difficult to work with. So a lot of these people who have studies of incredible work, they're coming to us to publish for the first time ever. So we're really honored to bring their work to the masses, as well as some new and fresh companies that are coming into our sphere as peer-reviewed products that actually work.
You know, here in California, we have this, well, he's actually from Florida. He might be there as well. His name is Bobby Parrish, and he does Bobby Approves.
Oh, Bobby.
Do you know Bobby? We'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, so I don't know him personally, but I'm going to have him on my podcast, so I'll keep that in mind. But don't you think what he's doing is pretty cool?
It's amazing.
It's amazing. You know, it's a very, very good thing.
That's software to be able to have people put their phone up to a QR code and know whether it's something they should buy. I think it's just it's incredible. And I don't know how you did it technically, because there's so many products that are on there. So I just thought, well, you could do that with your practitioners too. Have the TereZa and Anthony approved idea that, if people have that QR code when they're looking for because Bobby does it only for food. He doesn't really do it for health.
Correct. That's the also thing. And he also does a very broad spectrum. So we're very specific into this niche, which is a growing niche. And people are looking for anti-aging, longevity products, red light therapy,
Right,
PEMF, stem cell.
right,
This is very specific to people that are looking into their health span and biohacking themselves and
right,
also shielding themselves from the current environmental toxins.
right. Well, I was telling TereZa that my first issue, because I'm now a contributing editor to Top Doctor magazine. So monthly, I'll have a column, but the first issue we did is coming out in April as well, about the same time as your magazine. Is going to have Jay Campbell on the cover. And Jay and I are, we've been on each other's podcasts at least 4 or 5 times, so we've become, pretty good buddies. And
Jay
he
Campbell
is,
is amazing. He's in Shield, by the way, and
oh,
he's in Shield. And also, Jay Campbell owns Bio Longevity Labs,
I know,
and he's a major peer-reviewed, peer-approved by
I know,
Biohack Yourself advertiser.
yeah,
So you're going to see a lot of Jay Campbell's products because we have a big team that works for us, a bunch
yeah,
of reporters and journalists, and we're taking things to the next level with regards to giving visibility to these brands. We're
yeah,
actually taking it to the streets. We're introducing these products and services to people that actually want to anti-age, people that actually want. And so we're not relying on people to hopefully pick up the magazine. We're bringing the magazine to them, putting it in their hands with the products, really letting people know here's the studies, here's the efficacy, here's the founder. We met them ourselves. So we really take great
well,
pride.
you're doing a Bobby approves, but you're not having it formalized in the
Right,
software. But
right.
that is exactly what that's all about, and people need that. That's part of what I was saying earlier about the dead end, the number. I can't tell you the number of dead ends I've gone down, and I'm very uh, discerning, but you still make mistakes, or you still
Yes.
get bad information.
Yeah.
And yeah, so by the way, Dale Bredesen, Dr. Dale Bredesen was on my podcast last week, and he and Dr. Amen are very closely aligned. And so he might be someone for you to look at if you're going to continue with the brain health.
Oh yeah, we'd love to. The name rings a bell. I have
Oh,
to.
he,
Oh,
you
you've
know
spoken to
what?
him. Okay, good.
He's probably the foremost. He's a researcher, but he used to see patients, but he doesn't see them now. He's trained 2,000 people in the Bredesen protocol. So if you look him up, you'll see he is the one that made the bold statement that Alzheimer's will be this, that we will be the last generation that will look at Alzheimer's as a debilitating disease. So he believes he has the protocol, and he has a company called Apollo Health. So you have another avenue for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of people that we need to cross refer, but I think Dale Bredesen would be an amazing, and Dr. Patrick Porter from BrainTap.
Yes, we know
He
him.
was
He's
on my
very nice.
podcast, and he's coming on the second time. I take people a second time when I know that there's so much that's happened between the 2 times that they're on. So Patrick has, of course, done so much in the meditation and the
Oh
uh,
yeah, he's
uh,
everywhere, Patrick. He's everywhere. He's very
yeah,
good.
he is. He's omnipresent. I tell him that. And then, do you know True Diagnostics, Ryan
Yeah,
Smith?
he's in Biohack.
Yeah, so he's coming on the second time this year too. So I'm taking his test. So just so you know, for back to Jay Campbell, the BioLongevity Labs is doing what Dr. Bill Lawrence from the St. Petersburg Gerontology Labs. He's been doing that now for 4 or 5 years here. He's the representative of peptide bioregulators in the United States. So
Wow.
he is the original. Now he gets his Dr. Cavinson and he studied under Cabinson. He went to St. Peter. He's like you, Anthony,
Yeah.
and TereZa, both. Proactive, doesn't not shy about taking the risky steps, and he went
Yeah.
right to St. Petersburg, knocked on their door. Basically, they took him in, and then he became Cabinson's protege. And Dr. Cabinson is the father of peptide bioregulators, and Jay, gives him, of course, credit in his company. But Jay is doing the U.S. sourced, which is the first time that's happened. They've all been coming out of Denmark, and then Phil Mickens out of London is also doing them, where you can buy them from Phil from his company, Anti-Aging System. So those three are just doing so much in this. Peptide bioregulators are different than regular peptides, which they're much smaller aminos, and they're oral, which a lot of people have a problem injecting. So the peptides that have been out there, that are the darling of the biohacking world, a lot of people can't try. First, they're very expensive. Well, they're expensive. For the common person, cannot really afford to pay, unless they, if they're not doing Ozempic, which is what, about $1,000 a month. They can afford Ozempic, but they can't afford to do the peptide bioregulators, or the regular peptides, I mean. But I'm in the clinical trials with peptide bioregulators, so I'm a good spokesperson for their efficacy. And so what Jay's doing is very exciting, and he's also still doing injectables. But
Yes.
So let's talk about Robert F. Kennedy and the MAHA. What led you to connect with him and his MAHA movement?
Well, originally, Bobby Kennedy was in Biohack Yourself when he was running for president. He was
Right.
introduced to us by a very nice, prominent couple, David and Layla Sentner, who are stars of Biohack Yourself. They own Sentner Wellness,
Yeah.
which is a biohacking facility and the wellness facility. They have
Yeah.
multiple locations, and we're actually clients of theirs as well.
Yeah.
And they also own Sentner Academy, which is a biohacking school, elementary and middle school, and they own their own regenerative farm. So they are all in. And on top of that, they're very prominent people, outspoken during the pandemic. And they have a podcast show called Erased, because they were erased off of the internet and shadow. So they were a victim on all sorts of level. Plus, on the personal side of things, Layla was a mold toxicity victim herself in her own mansion, just like us in our mansion. Our son was mold toxified. So what ended up happening was Bobby was running for president, and he was on his campaign trail, and he, thought it was a good opportunity for visibility and the community to speak to the community in terms of his alignment with it, to be in Biohack Yourself. And so when he got in the film, we kind of established a relationship and rapport. And then what happened was he ended up doing the Make America Healthy Again pivot, which having Del Bigtree, who's the CEO of MAHA,
Right.
literally running his marketing and everything for the campaign during his presidency run. And then when they made the switch, it was perfect timing, because Del Bigtree is a legend in his advocacy for in his work with ICANN Network.
Of his work since
Highwire, ICANN.
kids were born, watching him. And so when we were casting the female documentary, I knew he had to be a part of this, because he's done so much work for
So we met Del.
Children.
She casted him. Mutual friends again, Dr. Fab Mancini, who's a good friend of ours. He's in Biohack Himself, said you got to have Del in Shield. He speaks to the community. There's a lot of moms that are his fans based on his work with Vax, the doctors. He's an Emmy award-winning producer. So when we met, we hit it off, and then he came to our event. He filmed Shield with us in Vegas, and then he flew to Puerto Rico. He was doing something for Bobby Kennedy in the MAHA movement before Bobby was confirmed. Then he flew back to the A4M event that we had. A4M basically rolled out the red carpet. They gave us the Bellini Ballroom.
No, I was there.
You were there? Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, we called it the Oscars of Longevity. That was a celebration for Biohack Yourself being released, and about 600 of the best people and experts showed up to that event,
including yourself. Now that we
Thank
know that
you.
you were
Thank
there,
you.
so
it was an amazing event.
so
I
Del
wish
was there.
I wish I had known you then, but because Jess McNaughton and I were both there.
Well,
Yeah.
look at that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you're on our page then, probably, because all the pictures of the people that showed up are on our landing page of a Biohack Yourself documentary on the website.
Oh,
So you can go to it whenever you get a chance. On the bottom footer, it says Biohack Yourself documentary.
oh,
And then there's all the pictures and all the media from that event. Anyway, so Del went there. He basically said, the Maha team wants to have this same experience and vibe in Washington for the inauguration and at the Waldorf Astoria for the Make America Healthy Again inaugural ball. Can
oh,
you guys produce that ball for us? Can you be the media team? It was an honor bestowed on us. It was a
right,
Not only
responsibility.
to produce the event the way we produced it, with doctors being the journalists and having incredible red carpet stations and really bringing that Hollywood kind of energy to
right,
this kind of environment, right? So we
right,
do that really well. But we were also commissioned to be the only exclusive press there, where we were actually reporting on the interviews. And so CNN and Fox and the traditional media was actually reporting based off of our footage, which was really exciting that we were able to create that magic. So yeah, we're supporters. We're happy that he's now confirmed and he's making tremendous amount of change. And we definitely support everything that he's doing. And now with our media company, Biohack Yourself Media, we have journalists, as Anthony mentioned, that we're reporting on what's happening with HHS, what's happening with CDC, what's happening, because people are more than ever in tune with their health. They really want to be in charge. They really want to understand what's going on behind the scenes and what's going to affect their health personally and their children's health. So we're reporting on everything and recapping the new.
I think that this is a seminal moment in American history, American health history,
Yes.
that people are really starting to embrace the awareness of taking responsibility for their health, for their family's health, and shopping more wisely. I think someone needs to come up with, other than Bobby doing it more technically, I think there could be some kind of a shopping service company that is nationwide, that takes people, takes them by the hand and helps them to basically make those right choices. Because it's one thing to read about it; it's quite another thing when you get into the supermarket and you're reading labels and you're not as educated as we are about the ingredients, and it can be daunting. So, I know nutritionists do this on a one-off, but it would be great if it could become some kind of a national service to do that. So the vision of Maha and your vision, how do you describe that if you were putting it together in a concept?
Well, Maha is, first of all, Maha is an executive order right now from the President of the United States.
Right.
Make America Healthy Again and
Right.
do all things to support the president's agenda. Bobby Kennedy happens to be one of the arms, and who was officially confirmed by Congress. So this means the entire United States governmental system has confirmed him. We have a system that's a very majority vote based. And so the majority of Americans, including the majority of the Senate, want to make America healthy again.
Yeah.
And so Maha is really president's orders from the top. And it's basically listening to the powers that be under the presidential executive order, which includes Dr. Oz, Bhattacharya, and all of the other people, including the Department of Marty McCary and all the people in the Department of Education, which are really trying to eradicate poisonous foods, toxins, environmental toxins, and really, eliminating the root cause of all disease. And so that's what Maha means.
And it starts with food.
It starts with food. It starts with awareness.
It starts at schools.
Starts at schools.
Yeah.
And so it starts with the people that are the haves and the have-nots. Because we can understand that I was fat and I was a have.
Yeah.
And there are fat people that are have-nots.
Yeah.
And there are people that we were poisoning, well, not us in general, but most parents are poisoning their children that are
Yeah.
haves. You know,
Yeah.
Layla's a good example. You know, she was poisoning, and us too. We were poisoning our kids with mold toxicity in the house, or even red dye one, right?
Yeah.
All the dyes. Those are
That
haves and have nots.
that has now been banned.
Right, but what about the have-nots, right?
No,
What
it's
Yeah.
about
banned,
them?
but yet still it can
Still
be on the
exist for
shelf
two
for
years.
2 years.
So what about the
Yeah, that's
have-nots?
right.
The have-nots, they have access to SNAP, right? Food stamps, right? Bobby's doing a great job of saying, hey, since the government's going to pay for food, why don't we just make them pay for healthy food? Why does it have to be bad food, right?
Right.
So that's what MAHA means.
And
Yeah.
what Biohack Yourself does is kind of accelerates giving the people the tools and the solutions in omni-media approach, whether it's our documentaries, whether it's our magazine, whether it's our social media platform and our website, right? The thought process is already there. The MAHA has begun. Now the
Yeah.
MAHA is doing their work of eliminating the toxins and undoing a lot of the bad things that were put in place. Whereas
Right.
we are coming in freshly and saying, these are the companies that are coming. This is going to help you go to sleep and be in theta sleep for, 4 hours and stuff like that. So
Right.
we're vetting companies. So we're aiding that movement in a different way where we're engaging the youth from running clubs to listening bars to this new tech-free wellness boom that's happening with our magazine, to engaging them in social media with fun videos, with user-generated content, people using toxin-free makeup, for example, or nitric
Right.
oxide. And what are you feeling about that? So we're
Right.
accelerating people's understanding and level of information about biohacking, longevity, and staying healthy.
Right. So what challenges do you face in achieving these objectives?
You know, we don't really face any challenges. It's really self-imposed challenges that people face. It's really whether they want to adopt. You know, it's almost like health is a religion to some people. And so some people have already unsubscribed to making America healthy again because they've been really indoctrinated with the information that they were fed to them, both mentally and physically. And so now we're understanding that these foods, and no one knows better than me because I was addicted to these foods, that there are addictive properties in these foods. So it's very
Yeah.
difficult to talk to someone who's addicted to that lifestyle,
Yeah.
addicted to the endorphins. And now, now we're recognizing that even there are companies out there trying to figure out food formulas to circumvent Ozempic and tirzepatide effects.
Yeah.
So there's a big play here in people not understanding that this is better for them. But it's like everything else, right? You can talk to somebody that has a voice box that wants to continue to smoke,
Yeah.
and that's them. And so the thing about this is that we're all going to die at some point,
Yeah.
right? There's no escaping that. Although Brian Johnson is trying to do a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
job,
And
but
James, the Radfest group doesn't exactly subscribe to that, but that's
exactly, and that's okay. Listen, we love to hear that as well. But
yeah.
one thing's for sure is if however long we get to live, we can live a healthy life.
Right.
And so that's our objective. Our objective is to slow down aging and really go into our 80s, 90s, and hundreds, and hopefully, 110s and 120s, feeling and looking like we are today. And
Yeah.
so that's the idea. And we feel that we're very close. We Peter Diamandis talks about longevity escape
Yeah.
velocity. He's in Biohack Yourself,
Yeah.
one of our cover stars of the magazine. And,
Yeah.
we love Fountain Life in the group
In
there.
fact, I think the only challenge here is the too much excitement about what's coming and too
Yeah.
much to tell people. So I find that fascinating because on daily basis we're coming exciting new things, and
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about portraying that message to the masses in all of these avenues. Yeah, I
Well,
don't see any challenges. Everybody's so open.
Peter Diamandis was the keynote at A4M a couple of years ago, and he said something very like Dale Bredesen. He was very bold. He said, "In the last 10 years, we've accomplished more in the longevity space than we did in the last 100 years." And and coming from him, that's an extremely important statement because he's right at the forefront with Tony Robbins in AI and other technological approaches to, as well as the more just collaborative approaches to wellness. So I'm so happy you're connected with him, and I
Yes.
think he's an incredible spokesperson. Well, they just signaled me about time is up, but I wanted to ask one other question before we go. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Probably this same age.
Well, yeah, no, your biological age is going to
It's
go
already down. Yeah, I'm
down.
10
Yeah,
years younger, TereZa as well.
yeah.
Right now, I think that we see Biohack Yourself and our family really just continuing to onboard amazing, incredible thought leaders. The brand itself, being able to meet people where they're at so that we're introducing some of these products, practitioners, and practices to the world.
And I see you're having an event for Maha and Jupiter.
Yeah, they have a
Florida.
massive event. It's great. We're so excited about the team over there and what they're doing and really advocating and doing the right thing, working with Washington now. It's amazing.
Yeah, is Maha going to have like a subscription for people who just, regular people who just want to join?
They're working on many things and they're really good at putting things up on the website, the Maha Action and Maha, they're really good at Instagram. And so they're always active. They're rolling out a lot of things. Just stay on top of it and you will be in the know. They're really good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the three of us need to collaborate because there's so many people that I can refer to you, and I'm sure TereZa and I talked about the number of people the other way, and also I'm going to do an article on the top women CEOs. This is for Top Doctor. It'll probably be in the fall, but so I'm searching for the top of the top, and TereZa, you're going to be in my list, and so
Thank you.
we're going through a whole interview process, but that should be a great article. And again, it just shows you that women are breaking into this space and in a big way.
Women are the caretakers, so this is a very hot topic. Yeah,
we got to jump. We have another actual podcast we're 2 minutes behind on, but this was amazing, Michele.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I've loved talking to you. I hope we get to meet. And this has been really, truly, you are an inspiration, and I know that our viewers are going to be contacting me, and we'll be doing some social media. You're the pros at that, so we'll share social media to make sure that the word gets out, and that what we've talked about today is beyond our discussion. It will go out to the masses. So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
We'll talk
Take
soon.
care. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful weekend. Okay.